Alright guys, so here's this throttle reverser thing that I got going on in here. And we're going to make quite a bit of change to this. I wasn't real happy with the way it felt, for one, and a couple of the way the cables connect. Had some concerns about that. Put the video out, kind of expecting to hear some of the same. And overwhelmingly, you guys made a ton of comments about how you disagree with how this cable is mounted to a fixed point. Now, I doubled them up to make sure if one gave way that we'd have a secondary attachment point. But that doesn't help you at all if you have a fixed point and having it pivot like it does in the arc. It's going to fatigue and break right here. Having two bolts holding it down is not going to do you any good when it breaks. So I've got a solution to that. I actually was working on the solution long before I posted the video. I actually had it ordered, and here's what I came up with. I'll show you real quick. All right, so here is a basically a pivoting throttle connection that you'd see on a lot of car carburetors. This is the same cable that's in on the push-pull tube. It will go inside that. There's a set screw that will be thread locked and then tightened down. It is a single point, but that'll be torque striped, and that will be a pre-flight item. But I've actually done pull tests on it. Once you crank it down, it is super strong in there. And the amount of force that is on that cable, you guys, I think, overestimate in your comments how much stress is on that cable. It's a very light pressure. I mean, you're less than probably, with the friction off on the cable, you're fighting that spring and the throttle body. There's really not a whole lot of pressure going on there. But nonetheless, this will solve the pivoting issue on that side. I also don't really care for the other side as well. It does pivot. I've got some washers that go in here that make up the slop, but as this one turns, the cable is able to pivot in there. So there's not really a fatigue point. Some of you guys are worried about this part fatiguing. Again, the forces just aren't strong enough. But I think there's a more elegant way to do this. The problem is the distances between the firewall and the console, and then the fixed cable length that I'm dealing with. Here's that cable safe that I was talking about that I also needed to go through the firewall. And it was not what I thought it was. I actually had to modify that to make it work. But it does work. The geometry of it, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So having the fixed cable length on the sled throttle cable is not ideal. So I had that other one, or I have that other one that I told you was the wrong part number, that had the 90-degree bend in it. The problem with this one, I talked about before, is this is the stock one, and at full throw the wrong part numbered 90-degree one is that much shorter. Make sure you can see that. Yeah, so it's about an inch shorter in its throw. Now, if I was to take and cut this cable sheath back an inch, then I would have the additional throw that I needed, because it's stopping here. If I move where it's going to stop back, I can move as far back as I want and get as much throw out of it as I need. So the thought is to go ahead and cut this end off of it so that I can use one of these on there as well. And then set that up so that both sides would have the same style pivoting connection point. And then I can cut that down to the size I need it to be to fit properly in the airplane. And then cut the cable to the length to match the throw distance I need. And then hopefully I can find one of these ends that can be swedged back on. And if I can't find that end, I could take this one and drill it out and see if I can't make it so I can reuse this one enough. There's no pull pressure on that, so if I can get it to at least slide back over the sleeve so I can crimp it down a little bit, then it'll function as the stop on the end. Other than that, I may just redesign the whole mechanism a little bit. I've had a conversation with a couple engineers about it. I actually had one of you send me some CAD drawings on a much more elegant design on how the would work on either end. And really cool. So I appreciate that kind of input. And we've actually talked about doing a cylindrical design as well. Get rid of the levers so everything's in a curved path. And so, I mean, there's a million ways to solve this problem. I think the most efficient way would be to just bring the linkage up to the throttle body and change it from attaching the top to attaching to the bottom. The problem with that is you're not desensitizing it, so you still have a really short throw for your throttle. So you'd have to somewhere in there also desensitize it by giving a lever arm. Anyway, it's I agree with you guys. Thanks for the comments. I'm not happy with it. I'm gonna fix it. This will get us running the way it is, but it's not going to go in the air with that fatigue spot. So this will go on there. Matter of fact, I'm going to put this on there right now. And then the other side I may change as well. And in the end, we'll come up with a safe operating throttle linkage setup before it goes in the air. So appreciate the comments. I hear the feedback. I agree with you guys. And we're going to make that a little bit better, or a lot better. Alright guys, so here's the new pivot arm with the new push-pull swivel on it. I had to make a step down in order to get it to line up with the rest of the bracket. So I just made a spacer in here, stepped it down. Here's your ball swivel. The cable is going to go in here like that. There's an Allen head screw, slides in, locks down, push-pull. It's going to act like that. Allows it to swivel. I rounded this corner to give ample clearance so that it can come all the way forward, even though the action's about like that. So that came out much better, much happier with that, the way that works. And I'm actually going to do the same thing on the other end. So I'm going to get rid of this connection on this end. It's because I like the way this works. It swivels real nice. The other one's going to be a pulling action. So I ordered another one of these, and that will go, actually I'll drill a new hole right in the middle, round this off, finish that up real nice when that gets here. And then we'll have our throttle cable done. I did cut the end off of the other cable. Let me show you, I went ahead and put it in the airplane. I routed it much nicer this time down through. I haven't put the pass-through yet. You can see how much extra I have routing it that way. So what I'm going to do is once I get that arm in there and the new linkage, is measure out what I need to cut off. And then this piece that I took off the end will then go back on the cable right about there. Allow it to seat into here. And then I've got a little C-clip that holds that into place. And then we'll cut this cable to the length we need. Same thing on the other side. And then I think we'll be all good. Now I just have to work on setting the spring. So the spring tension, I went ahead and got a bunch of different springs to kind of play around with. It's kind of what was available to me. So a couple different styles, different strength springs. I think this is going to be the one we're going to go to. Possibly that one. I got a different kind. It's a lot stronger just to see. One of the other comments you guys made, a lot of people made, was the failure and where it fails to. I was talking about if it failed at that point where we had the problem where it was not allowing it to flex. If it failed there, yes, if a stronger spring is here, it will fail the full throttle. If the cable from the lever out to the engine fails, it's going to go to idle just because the spring set in the throttle body, if that cable fails, it's going to close the throttle body. So it really depends on where it fails. If it fails on the right side, it's going to go probably mid throttle is what I'm aiming for. If it fails on the left side, it's just going to go to idle. Now, the other thought I had was to eliminate the springs mostly. Maybe put leave that one tension spring on there so that it would fail to a medium to higher throttle, and remove the spring out of the throttle body. So if you guys can see, right down in there is the spring. It's a coiled spring. You have to split the throttle bodies apart, and they're synced. So if you do that, you're taking apart the syncing nut and all that to get that spring out. And once that spring is out, it's going to be really, I think, really touchy with the throttle. So that the fact that the spring's in there allows you to have a little more positive control on it. So one of the other guys on the forums playing around with taking that out, working on a different linkage. So I'm kind of waiting to see his results before I dig into that. The other thing I thought about doing is I have the second engine with the second throttle body, is to go ahead and pull that throttle body off and play around with that one a little bit. So I'm going to wreck this one before I have an idea of what that spring's going to do. So anyway, that's what's going on with the throttle. It is back apart. And once I decided that I wanted to do it this way with this pivoting point, I should have ordered two. I didn't, but you know, it takes 4 or 5 days for those to get here. So I'll have to wait for that other one to show up. But then that's going to be, I'm going to be much happier with the result.
Back of the dash?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and turn your ignition on.
Okay.
And the dash should just come up with some words on it, like something in green and
yes,
connected or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on the screen you can see it uploading. That's cool.
Yeah. And it says complete on the screen.
It says erasing download setup, erased okay.
It says okay on the dash?
Yeah.
Okay. So now just unplug, probably easiest to just unplug the USB from the computer, and then the dash should power on and go through its...
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, so currently 160 max. You're using, you said the right button or left button?
The left button should scroll you through your screens.
What do you, which one do you bring up when you're warming up so you can see? You just go by engine?
That main screen has everything you really need. The main screen here,
Yeah.
I got it on the laptop here. It shows you everything you need. Your engine temp and oil temp are your main ones right here, and they're going to be blinking at you until they reach operating temperature. These right here.
Yeah.
And I mean, your fuel pressure, throttle position I look at a lot, because if it's really cold, I'll crack this to like 1% maybe. You know, you got voltage here, oil pressure is critical. And this is your wideband and your fuel trim. Your EGTs, you see that coming alive. Everything you need is really right here. So it's been working for me. And then I've made this number very big, so the RPM and prop RPM is nice. Even though it's off to it's in front of my passenger, I can still clearly see it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's center panel. This is real nice.
Yeah. So, okay, let's, why don't you plug the cord now pull it out of the dash and plug it into the ECM, and let's work on that.
Okay. All right. Let me just explain on this video real quick what we're doing. I'm connected via the internet to Brian Dacus. He's helping me set up the ECU for the first run of the engine. And so what we need to do now is to set the throttle position sensor. And we already we reprogrammed the screen to show his most current screens. And he did it in the color combination to match my airplane, which is badass. Let's go through the screens here. It's pretty cool. It already says 2.35s on the Hobbs, though. What's up with that?
Because you've been playing with it so much.
Oh, does it run anytime the battery's on?
Anytime your ignition switches on, the Hobbs meter clicks away. Some of it you're going to have up to maybe an hour or more. You're going to get it that way once I send it to you, because I have to program it and make sure and test it on my run stand and everything too.
Can it be reset?
No.
No.
Okay, that should be it. Yeah, see, so what you'll do is you go to Wizard here, set up, and then set throttle range. So it's closed right now, right? Just sitting there wherever the last idle was.
Yeah.
So you can do that one. So you do that. So it remembers that voltage, that's your live voltage come off the TPS sensor. It's going to say that's now 0. Now you need to go in there and just push on it, or with a screwdriver or something, open it wide open, and then I can click this, and then that'll set the max.
Okay, that's open.
Right there?
Yep.
Okay. You turn it off. It should all be good.
All right.
So all you need is, get your fluids in there and fire up.
All right, so that was pretty cool to be able to have the ECU remotely programmed from Brian. It's the first time he's done that with the AEM setup for the Yamaha. So we had to do a little bit of troubleshooting on which program to use. Not which program, but to get the program to work, there was an additional file we needed to download to activate the Wizard, just because the program we're using. So once he figured that out, we downloaded that, and then it went real quick. We updated the tune to his current tune, and then set the throttle position. And so it's now ready to start. I guess actually what we're waiting on is that throttle part for the throttle linkage. I still need that to clean that up and make that more airworthy. All right, guys, the last video, man, a lot of comments about this throttle, and I touched on it in my earlier clip here. Here's the solution. It came out pretty good. I got one of these, a couple of these low-car ink carbon assemblies for a cable with an Allen fitting. And so these are pivoting ends. So there's a ball fitting, and those pivot on there. They're on both ends, and the cables go into those and lock in place. Very carefully tuned the cables so that they're at full throw on both sides, and I'll show you the action now. I also increased the spring tension, so it's a much stronger spring, and by doing that, got the friction on, it stays wherever I want, wherever I leave it. So here's the throttle action. Let go of it anywhere and it stays there. That's with the friction off, and that's because that spring tension. If this cable were to break, it pretty much leaves the throttle wherever it was last. There's also very little tension on these cables, so you can see the action now from above. The cables stay straight in line. There's your throttle assembly. So much happier with that. You do have the friction, but it will stay pretty much wherever you want it, and then you can crank it down just like your normal throttle. I've got a C-clip that clamps this cable into its spot that will go in, and then I've got to put the bulkhead pass-through fitting on there on the cable. That goes through right there. I'm going to do that now, and then the throttles are done. So give me some comments on what you think about the improvement. I'm much happier with it. The feel of it's much better. There's no binding. There's no fatigue or failure points like the previous one. But anyway, I think this is a much better version, and we'll give that a go. And give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Oh, there's a phone going off again. I apologize, but I'm not going to run it. It is ready to run minus fuel. And I'm running out of time, and the reason I'm not going to run it is because I got to go to work tomorrow, and the fuel system hasn't been leak checked yet. And I don't want to throw some fuel in there, prime the system just to start it, and then walk away for 4 days with fuel in it and have it leak all over the brand new paint job and the interior and everything. So what I would like to do is take my time with that, put the fuel in, leak check all the fittings through the whole system. It hasn't been done yet. And make sure when I prime it, add pressure to everything, I don't have any leaks anywhere. And after doing that, then I'll start it. If any of you guys have suggestions on mufflers to quiet this thing down, pretty much on the forums we found that there's not a great solution yet. Everyone's using either the GSXR or the Hayabusa, some type of motorcycle silencer. It's not even a muffler, and they're awful loud. So I'm not super happy with that solution yet, and I really don't like the way some of them are mounted down underneath through the cabane because I want to put a belly pod on. So I kind of want to go across and have it dump and keep it just behind the radiator. So I'll be working on that kind of while I'm at work this week, researching on the internet, trying to find a good muffler. I've been doing it for a while. I just can't find anything I like. But anyway, that was the progress for the week. I'll end this one here. Next one, I promise to have a running engine. Well, at least attempt at running an engine. Hopefully it will run. There's no guarantees. I just promised and then said no guarantee. So.